All right. So, hello everybody, good afternoon, and welcome to today's webinar, The Future of Data and Analytics Career. All right, so my name is Kavita Radhakrishnan. I am with InfoSeps and I'll be moderating today's event. Before we jump into things, I would like to go over some quick housekeeping items. Today's session will be recorded and will be made available when the event is over. Also, we will have time at the end of the event for you to ask questions to our DNA experts, so I encourage you to use the question box during the event. We have an exciting webinar ahead of us today featuring Divya Gupta, Partner and Solutions Lead from NASCOM, Paresh Ashra, President Analytics of an online PSB, and Shashank Garg, the CEO of InfoSeps. A little bit more about each of them before we break into our questions today. Divya Gupta is a business leader with 28 plus years of experience. She joined NASCOM in April 2018, where she heads the partner and solution portfolio for NASCOM Future Skills Initiative. Prior to joining NASCOM, Divya was with Intel, over 24 years of experience in the US and in India. She has held several leadership roles and senior management positions during her career at Intel. Happy to have you here, Divya. Thank you for joining us and welcome you.
Thank you, Kavita.
Our next panelist is Paresh Ashra. He has 23 plus years experience encompassing a wide array of technology in building capability, competency, practices, and product engineering focused on data, insights, and analytics for the BFSI industry. He has been helping delivering functional, scalable solutions to drive revenue and business growth. Glad to have you here with us, Paresh. Thank you for joining us and thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Lastly, our third panelist for the day is Shashank Garg. He is the co-founder and CEO of InfoSeps, a data and analytics solution company. Previously, he led business analytics and information management initiatives at numerous Fortune 500 firms. He began his business analytics career at MicroStrategy. Shashank has a master's degree in engineering and information systems from University of Maryland and a bachelor's in metallurgical engineering from VNIT. He is also a founding member of the Nagpur chapter of TIE, the world's largest network of entrepreneurs. Thank you so much for being here, Shashank. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
All right, so as you can see, not only are these three experts and successful in the DNA space, but each of them has evolved in their careers over the years and have different backgrounds and stories that they can share with you today. All right, so moving on to the first question today, Divya, we would like to talk about the demand and talent gap that you see with respect to AI, big data, and analytics today.
Kavita, thanks for asking this question. I think it's very critical that everybody understands that there is a huge gap in demand and supply today in our digital talent. We keep talking about disruption happening from COVID and if what's really happening with Industry 4.0 coming. Are the jobs going away? Let me correct that notion with some data points. So we had a report from Zinnov on demand and supply last year, and as per the report, India's demand for digital talent jobs is approximately 8 times larger than the size of its fresh talent pool. And this demand is actually going to become lot more over the next 4 years, and the available fresh talent is not going to increase between what we have today and what's going to be available next 4 years. If you look at the IT BPM sector today, there are about 4.3 million talent employed, right? And when I talk about the IT BPM, I'm talking IT services, BPM, engineering, GCC, software product sectors, all these. Now, if you look at the entire total talent pool of 4.3 million, The employed talent in the future or the new age technologies, which is where we taught AI, big data, cloud, cyber, IoT, that's about 1.7 to 1.8 million. And this number is supposed to grow to almost double in next 4 or 5 years. Now we talked about how the demand is 8 times larger than the size of its talent pool. So keeping that in perspective, if you look at the open positions we have today in this new age technology, is about 600,000, right? I'm not even going to cover what's going to happen 4 years or later because the gap is going to keep increasing. And the fresh talent pool available is only 45 to 50,000 students graduating out of 8 million total graduates. And this number, when I said the gap is not going to reduce, even though demand is going to double, because the fresh talent is supposed to grow only by 60K in next 4 years, right? So I think everybody realizes that there is a gap. Organizations know that reskilling is no longer an option. They are focusing heavily on this aspect also to close the demand supply gap. If you I believe standardization of job roles, the competency skills required, if we have some kind of a standardization, that will also help in reskilling and closing the supply gap. Some of the digital skills that are in great demand today are big data analytics, cloud computing, machine learning, and cybersecurity. As a matter of fact, Kavita, I want to share with you and with our audience that there was a study done in 2019, 97,000 positions that were related to analytics and data were left vacant because there was not enough qualified talent. Today, data science and analytics are playing a critical role in solving society's toughest challenges, be it climate control, response to wildlife, response to pandemic, predicting models for healthcare sources, designing clinical trials, bunch of areas. It's no longer limited to the IT sector. And the areas that are contributing to this demand are growing investments by the global MNCs. That's causing the rise in demand, which is further widening the demand supply gap. We keep talking that COVID is disrupting the economy, but COVID has also introduced several new cases across industries, like online delivery of services, online learning, digital banking, online healthcare services. And the development of solutions for these use cases has led to the demand for digital talent growth, especially in technologies such as cloud computing, AI, big data, cybersecurity. So, I've given you enough numbers. I think I'm not trying to confuse anybody, but I think the essence I want to leave you with is that there is a huge demand and there is not enough fresh supply of talent. So we need to reskill ourselves and we need to utilize the current adjacent talent that's already employed in IT services but are not yet ready for the new age technologies to reskill themselves. So back to you, Kavita.
Yeah, actually, thank you so much, Divya. I mean, it's a total in-depth insights that you've given us today, and this is going to help a lot of us, I'm sure, even a little bit motivated towards the aim that you have to bring in more of talent from the DNA part of the complete industry. Thank you, Divya. All right, and now we kind of have a very intriguing question for you, Shashank. Why did you choose to build an enterprise focused on DNA?
Oh, um, before I begin, Kavita, let me thank Divya for sharing those statistics. Divya, out of the 97,000 vacant positions, I will tell you that InfoSeps has quite a few in those as well. We are at least slated to hire 1,000 plus professionals in the next 3 years. I will also add, Divya, that not everybody who is in the DNA space themselves is ready for the new age themselves. So there are people I'm sure listening in who've been in this field for more than 3, 5, 8, 10 years. And what we are seeing from a customer standpoint, we'll talk about that later. I see a gap there as well. So that's only making it worse, unfortunately. But back to your question, Kavita. I started my professional career using BI and data management for large companies, and very early, I was fortunate to realize a few things. Right, number one, I knew that becoming data driven was the only way for companies to stay out of their competition. And I'm talking about the end organizations that we serve, right? And back in 2005, at least when we started, the state of DNA was so primitive that I knew it was going to take a really long time for companies to catch up. And third, I kind of guess that this field will continue to disrupt and evolve every few years, which is what we have seen over the last 2 decades, which meant that it will be a continuous source of new learning. And with all these things, right, it just made sense for us to start InfoSeps with the goal of helping customers become data driven and staying modern. And in the last 5 years, I must add that we have seen so much change in the field of DNA and what customers expect today, that customers are expecting the average time, and you're a professional yourself, Kavita, so you would know. So whatever time you used to take 5 years ago to build a data application has gone down from months to weeks and weeks to days. And that's what customers are expecting. But I will tell you from my point of view, at least in 80-90% of the cases, and I'm talking the broad industry here, all the work that is happening, the teams are struggling to meet this expectation. And this happens due to what I believe is extremely poor reuse of assets, toolkits, or reference solutions. You want to do a reporting solution, you start from scratch. That's not the way we should be doing things. At least at InfoSeps, I'm happy to share that we're taking a radically different approach of reusability. Our goal is to start every single project about 20 to 50% complete on day one. And this is creating tremendous learning opportunity for everyone at InfoSeps. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, indeed, Shashank. Wow, I think if you have to look from an entrepreneur's point of view, this is exactly what every one of us wanted to hear today. Thank you so much, Shashank. And like I said, we already kicked in, and now I think we're going to build a career into DNA space. So really looking ahead for all the audience, also what they gather from this as well. Thank you so much, Shashank. All right. So we had Divya talking about the talent market perspective. We had Shashank speaking from an entrepreneur point of view. Let's hear from Paresh. Paresh, what motivated you to become a DNA professional yourself?
Right, good. And it's a good question. And as Divya built up on the macro view of how DNA looks like today and what Shashank identified in way back in 2005. So if I were to look at my career, I got into DNA area by chance because the first 4 years I was into application development, so dabbled in Microsoft technology, Java technology, building applications. But then I got a chance to work on a data warehouse business intelligence project. This was in 2003. And once I got into the project, I saw how the data warehouse solution helps businesses to make those informed decisions. And so dealing with your data, understanding the meaning behind that data, how that data is getting generated through the various business processes that help function the business on a day-to-day basis. And then looking at the need that the business users would have from understanding their day-to-day operational reports, and for the senior management, looking at some of the business performance dashboards and all. So that particular feeling and experience that I was getting was really empowering for me. And so I thought, let me continue, build up my career in this area. And over the period of time, I looked at how this data warehouse gets built in terms of how you structure your data, how you create your data mart layers, where like there are different concepts of looking at a star schema or a snowflake schema, which helps you slice and dice your information, right? So that pretty much helped me, and it kept my interest in this area and built up my curiosity in learning a lot more about the domain aspect as well as the technologies that help build these solutions. So over the past 18, 19 years or so, I would say I have been focused on DNA space, and it was a gradual move to advanced analytics area as well. from business intelligence to advanced analytics, where you look at artificial intelligence and machine learning. And of late, if you see, the advanced analytics has become almost pervasive in every aspect of the business that you could look at. So that's
That's awesome,
my
Paresh.
share of information.
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome. Looking at your career move and the success you've had throughout, I think nothing is impossible for believers, and until you try, it's not going to be possible ever. So, thank you so much, Paresh. And before we move on to the next question, which is going to be for you, Paresh, we want you to voice up a little. We can hear you a little feeble. Um,
Sure.
so, Paresh, can you also tell us how do you see the career path evolving in DNA space over the next 2 to 5 years down the line?
Yeah,
Going
sure.
back to the
And
same question and the same in line, yeah.
right. No, and that's how I would also look at it, because traditionally, as I have seen in my career itself, the way industry was about a decade back or 15 years ago, the way it has evolved, then the way it is going to evolve in next 2 to 5 years is going to be very drastic, and that has been seen in a way. If you look at take the example of a pandemic, where Divya also touched upon in terms of some of the new use cases and new business models that have evolved. So the acceleration of adoption of this digital technologies that was supposed to happen, say, next 3 to 5 years, that has accelerated almost by as much time, and have been in adoption in past 1 year now. So there is a humongous data that uh, has been generated, and the businesses have created this data. They have harnessing this data, but they want to make information or insights out of this data to see how they can leverage and make better insights, and be able to serve their customers little better or improve their experience, right? So most of the consumer facing enterprises, that's what they look at to see how they can change the life for their customer in a better way. So if you look at the way this needs to be addressed, there are a lot of platforms algorithms that have emerged to solve this and that has accelerated to an extent in the adoption of these technologies in the DNA space. Now, if you look at traditionally the way we approach to implement any data the data pipeline, and then you top it up with embedded analytics and some form of visualization layer, right, which is nothing but the reports and the dashboards, which will give those insights. And these roles, if you look at today, are separate roles, meaning that for each of this piece of work that you need to deliver, you have individuals who focus on those areas and get the work done. But as I see it evolve in the next 2 to 5 years, there is going to be a need for multi-skilled roles. So that the businesses would want an end-to-end data to insight kind of a journey to be enabled. And they would want this to be done by fewer number of people and fewer number of roles as well. So essentially, the businesses would look for full stack engineers, right, who are able to work on creating this data integration layer, and able to standardize the data, define the data consumption layer, and then enable the descriptive and prescriptive reporting with embedded AI and ML models, right? So it's one who is looking at starting as a data analyst, then gradually moving into data engineer, or a machine learning engineer or a data scientist or a visualization developer, these roles will start getting merged, right? So it may not be 5 roles in future, but maybe a one role or a 2 roles who will be able to cater to all these needs for the end-to-end journey to cover the entire whole 9 yards of the DNA solution. And as a part of this, the people will need to look at reskilling and upskilling. And Divya highlighted the need as well for the industry, because currently you do not have uh, enough people with enough skills in or specialized skills in these areas. So there is going to be a lot of need to reskill people, and also people will need to upskill themselves to be able to get into this area and grow themselves in this career, right? So these are the ways in which I see that it's the careers of careers in the data and analytics field is going to evolve over a period of time. And as I said earlier, analytics is becoming mainstream, right? Because anywhere you see today, most of the digital first businesses, they have embedded analytics, machine learning algorithms to provide the business related support or transaction support, right? So the need for a typical skill, which is like one should have a good communication skill as well. And if you are specifically looking at building your career in data science area and the ML engineering area, uh, you need to be a good storyteller, right? So that you are able to effectively communicate these prescriptive insights to your business stakeholders. So there's growing need for both the soft skills and the hard skills, which will come in play, and and the scenario that we are going to look out from for next 2 to 5 years will have these requirements for overall build-up of the individual's career.
Right. All
Yes.
right. Thank you, Paresh. I think they were very valid as well as rational points that you mentioned and quickly summed it up for us. Thank you so much, Paresh, for giving us this viewpoint as well. You yourself being a DNA expert and a professional in your career. So that's a very well answered question, I would say. Thank you. But this also brings us to a very important question, I feel, that we should talk on. So, the top guiding principles that should be useful in DNA space. And what do you think about this, Shashank? The top guiding principles that we should be looking at into this DNA space?
Sure. First of all, thank you, Paresh, for sharing all your insights. And Kavita, since the audience is very much professionals, I'm going to answer that in the context of professionals and not companies. So, as we all know, DNA is all about innovation, speed, continuous improvement, and quality, right? So, remember, we spoke that business cycles are getting shorter and shorter. With that said, it is becoming increasingly hard for professionals like yourselves to answer the question of whatever you're doing today, right? How exactly is helping the business? Let me do a simple test. I want all of you to close your eyes and just do for like 10 seconds reflect on. Can you answer a simple question? What value did you add to the business user of your application? I'm going to let everybody think. So, in my mind, it will either be increase in revenue, reduction of cost, or risk, or compliance, but you have to get a tangible answer. And if you're not getting a clear answer, then you are probably, something needs to change. You're doing something wrong. Somebody's doing something wrong, right? Similarly, let me ask you another question. How many technologies are currently being used by your team to deliver a solution? Think of a number. Put that in the chat window. Take a few seconds. So again, if your answer is, let's say, 1 or 2, you are probably not in the best place from your career standpoint. And let me explain what that means, right? Because having worked with sort of 200 plus global customers, having helped them navigate through this disruption and making them data driven, we know now that any end-to-end DNA project typically leverages at least 7 to 8 technologies, and the customers are not willing to invest in 8 individual experts to execute on that project. They expect those skills in 1 or 2 people. Take the example of cloud. On an average, we are using 20 plus cloud services. That's from one cloud, right? And now customers are talking about multi-cloud setup, which further increases the number of services. So building expertise in 1 or 2 tools is not going to take you very far, right? So take the example of data engineering as a space, and I grew in as a ETL expert, right? And being an Informatica developer or talent ab initio, I love those technologies, by the way, used to be enough. But if you look at the amount of projects we are delivering now, the focus has shifted from these tools to scripting and open source library, building data pipelines using open source libraries now, right? So instead of just focusing on the tool, if you understand a higher level competence, let me call it cloud and data engineering, you will be able to deliver using whatever technology, platform, service that your team chooses to use. So keep that in mind, right? So with that, I'm going to, Kavita, answer your question as 4 basic principles that I advise everybody, a DNA professional. Number 1, you have to stop focusing on individual tools only. Go for higher level competencies. Divya, you spoke earlier about, if you can have a common language around a manageable number of pillars, then we can reskill better. So cloud and data engineering, in my mind, is one such pillar. It's all about using native cloud technologies to build DNA systems. Analytics and data management can be another higher level competence. This is about full stack implementation, from data sourcing to data insights and building next gen applications, right? Or it could just be service management, right? So if you're a project manager listening to this webinar, right? Ability to run large scale data and analytics initiatives using agile principles. That's rule number 1. So focus on higher level competencies, principle number 1. Principle number 2, the industry talks about this, right? So we prefer T-shaped profiles when it comes to skill building. So depth in one in your formative years, and then diversifying into building more breadth across other competencies as you grow. A pie shape is even better. So depth in 2, and then multiple skills at the top, right? Number 3, in addition to technology skills, I think Paresh touched upon this, right? Definitely build the business appreciation, the functional stuff, honing your consulting and advisory skills, the solutioning competencies, and then learning techniques like design thinking, focusing on automation. All of that is extremely important, right? And lastly, this is something that I tell everybody, right? So you do not know what technology is going to be most successful in 3 years. If anybody's telling you, other than higher level, AI, machine learning, we know it's going to be there, right? But which particular product, which particular tool, nobody knows, right? So I encourage all of you to take risks, experiment with new roles, get out of your comfort zone, and just be open to change. So those are the 4 principles I would say, Kavita, extremely important. Focus on higher level competencies, develop T-shaped profiles, build skills more than tech, business appreciation, advisory, design thinking, and then finally take more risks.
Absolutely. Very well said, Shashank. I think competencies is actually the key to stand out, and also getting out of the comfort zone that you rightly mentioned, to be open to the changes. It's very important indeed for all of us to look into a career track and focus on these. Thank you so much. All right. Intense. Coming back to you, Divya, what is the industry body like in NASCOM doing to help building the talent team as such from the NASCOM point of view?
Yeah. So, very relevant. This is exactly what my job is right now, Kavita. NASCOM, one of the priorities for us is talent development, making India a digital talent hub. In when I joined NASCOM about 3 years back, we were starting this initiative called Future Skills. And this is it's an e-learning platform, and this was created in collaboration with the industry because everybody realized that there is a requirement for skilling, upskilling, because everybody is talking about, how disruptive this industry 4.0 is going to be. Are people going to lose jobs? Are we going to be out of jobs? All the scare came, a lot of reports came that, a lot of people are going to have to reskill themselves. So people were just looking at that point of saying, okay, I'm going to lose my job. What they have to realize is with industry 4.0 and the new technologies, while yes, maybe some of the current jobs will go away, but the opportunities for the new jobs are even more, lot more. So NASCOM, in collaboration, like I said, again with industry, we have a learning platform, a reskilling platform, which focuses on these technologies: AI, big data, cloud, IoT, cybersecurity, blockchain, RPA, web and mobile, AR, VR. So, and Shashank just touched upon that. We know how many technologies are you touching when you're working in your organization or working on your projects. And none of these technologies, right? If you look at IoT, we call IoT as technology, but think of IoT. Is it really a technology by itself? No. You're looking at cloud, you're looking at AI, you're looking at sensors. You have so many different components that you're touching upon. So reskilling is imperative. You don't have to be an engineer today to be impacted by AI or big data analytics, right? It impacts all different fields. So, as part of reskilling, we have this platform called Future Skills. It will initially launched for the B2B segment and B2A segment, but in collaboration with Mighty, we just launched the platform last year in November. This is a B2C platform called Future Skills Prime. And this is a learning platform focusing on these future technologies for the entire country. Uh, One thing you also realize that just having technical skills is not enough. The professional skills or the softer skills, business skills, whatever you may want to call it, it's equally important, right? If you could be the strongest coder, but if a client cannot put you in front of a client, in front of their customer, your career is limited, right? And I remember, I mean, years back, everybody would say, "Oh, the back end stuff can be done by the people in India, but we cannot bring them in the front of a partner or in front of a customer." That has to change. Our effective communication, the skills on negotiation, effective communication, digital thinking are critical. So one my advice would be that we are on the platform, we learned that from industry, we got that feedback. So we are focusing not only on technology, but also on these professional skills, softer skills. We have courses, we have free content from our partners. We call it digital fluency content, but what that means is actually micro learning content, which clear learning outcomes. But I would encourage people who are trying to figure out what does the technology even mean. If I want to move from, let's say, cloud, if I want to get AI expert, I would recommend you guys explore Future Skills Prime platform. Refer to the content, familiarize yourself with all the different kind of technologies out there, and learn to reskill, upskill yourself. That would be my advice, and that's what NASCOM is really focusing on. It's a platform that's available to every citizen of India. It's a free platform. We have and since we're talking DNA specifically, I can tell you that we have content from our training partners. We have content from your OEMs, Microsoft, Cisco, AWS, Accenture, Salesforce. We have all these players who are actually putting their content on this platform. So check it out, and I would say it's a good place to see what NASCOM is actually doing in collaboration with the government on reskilling and upskilling the India talent.
Wow, thank you, Divya. There's actually so much to look at in the future skills in NASCOM that offers variety of things, I feel, and especially with you having such a vast experience yourself, I'm sure there's so much more to know, to learn, and to look forward to as well. Thank you so much for taking us through this talent building pointers and enlightening us. Okay, thank you, everybody. We are now going into our Q&A section. So we're going to open up the Q&A to our audience. Don't forget to use the Q&A box to ask your questions to our experts. We will try and get through as many as we can in the allotted time. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to our company InfoSeps that we are hiring globally across all our competencies. Take a look at infoseps.com/careers. We also encourage you to look at the company video shared with you on your chat windows, please. Okay, so let's take a look at what questions have we received so far. All right, so here's the first question that we have from the audience already. So they ask, what criteria should I use to pick the right career destination? Shashank, would you like to answer this for us? So the question is, what criteria should I use to pick the right career destination? Shashank, I think you're on mute. We can't hear you.
Sure. Sorry about that. So yeah, this can be answered in many ways, but I would say, so if you're looking to decide which company to join, which organization to join, I think you have to really, more than the company and the organization, I tend to focus on what exactly you will be doing and the team. And it is, and most importantly, is data and analytics at the core of their business. And when I mean core, do you see public? So if you're going to join, let's say, an organization, any organization like a Procter & Gamble or Intel, right? So they will make it very clear in their public reports that they thrive on data analytics, right? If you're going to join a consulting firm, a solutions firm like us, I would pick one which is DNA focused only, and not just one of the many things that they do. That would be my advice. Hey, Kavita, you're on mute.
All right, so I was just saying thank you, Shashank. That was very well answered.
We still don't hear you, Kavita.
All right, can you hear me? All right, I think I'm back. All right, can you hear me?
Yes, but then you keep muting, so I think there's some.
I think it's auto muting somehow. All right.
Yeah, if somebody
I
wants
wouldn't
to
talk
put
much
in
then.
any questions in the chat window, we can pick it up from there.
Yes, we do have another question, although from the audience already. So it says, what are some of the pitfalls I, as a DNA professional, should avoid? I think, Paresh, you are the best fit for this question. So the question is, what are some of the pitfalls I, as a DNA professional, should avoid?
Yeah, no, definitely. So if you are looking at building your career, I would say don't stick to a particular technology, right? Because as Shashank mentioned, the technologies are here today, gone tomorrow. So that is something, a strict no-no. So experiment with whatever is in upcoming, as well as build your focus not just into technology, but also on the business side. So understanding about domain is also very important aspect to look at, because at the end of the day, the analytics solutions, the machine learning solutions that you build are meant for solving a business problem. And if you don't understand business problem and the data behind it, it would be very difficult. So building depth in the domain as well is equally important, as well as looking at the technology aspect. And as I said, experiment with the technologies. You have to look at what is upcoming and how those technologies tools are enabling this solution, so that it becomes easy when you look at upskilling or reskilling in newer technology areas.
All right.
And
Thank you
and
so
never
much, Paresh,
forget,
for answering that.
learning has to be
Yeah.
continual. So don't stop learning, I would say. So don't say that I've already 10 years into this field and I don't need to learn anything new. The day you say that, it's the end of your career path in the end. So continual learning
Yeah.
is a must, and keep your motto as you should keep your motto saying that it's life for learning and learner for life, right? So that's how you should look at it. So continual learning is a must, and that's where NASCOM has also provided you a platform. So just make a best use of all the resources that are available at your disposal. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think always open for learning is one very important thing that we already saw from your profile, and I think you're going to get a lot of pings from LinkedIn and here and there today.
Yeah.
Be prepared, Paresh.
Sure.
All right. Thank
I
you,
have gone
Paresh,
through
for
that
answering
journey, so
that.
I can easily do it. I've gone through that journey, so
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think it's a great insight to know about what you've done so far and how it has come up. So that's a wonderful thing. Thank you, Krish. And there's one more question. So it says, what critical success factor would you recommend based on your experience for talent in the formative years, about 3 to 10 years of range? And I think I'll pass on this question for Divya to answer.
Okay, thanks, Kavita. I think once the one big change in your life is when you're just starting your career, right? That's one big area. And at that time, honestly, when we start off the career, we're not really focusing on what projects we'll be doing. There's a lot of anxiety in just starting a job, right? If I go and dating myself, like I already said, 28 years back when I graduated, you know, just getting a job in a high tech, getting a job at Intel was exciting. I wasn't really focused on the exactly what project I was going to be working on. But as you get into a role and, and you start getting a grip of what the projects are about, what is your comfort level, what do you want to do, I think that's where you need to really sit back and say, is this the job I enjoy? And to me, I think irrespective of which job, so I'll touch more on the softer skills of, what I would give advice to people advancing in their career. I would say, ensure what you like to do. Be passionate. When you heard Shashank, you heard Paresh, they were talking about their life journey, and that can only happen. Somebody can only stay in that space if they have passion for it. You can't spend your life, half of your life, if you're not passionate about something. So have that passion. That's going to be very important. Secondly, continuous learning, right? I'll give you my example. So when I was working with Intel, I was focusing more on cloud, IoT, and everything. And I had to prepare a presentation for my MD for on AI. And this is 2008, 17 I'm talking about. I couldn't find a single use case of AI in India. I searched. I had to take the examples from different countries. I couldn't find an example for my presentation for India. 3 years now. If I had to go search, I think story has changed. Still, I mean, we may not be as advanced as some of the other countries, but there is a huge AI initiative in India. Lots of use cases. So if I come back to this, if I have been part of industry and I don't want to upskill myself, that's my loss. I have to stay relevant, irrespective of how many years you spend in industry. The only constant in life is change. You have to remember that. The only other thing I would advise people starting off, especially when you're early on in your career, don't falsify your resume. I cannot emphasize on that enough. I recruit a lot. And you know, don't write things on your resume that you don't know about. I If somebody has to hire you, that's probably the biggest turnoff. So that would be just one fundamental thing. People exaggerate like anything on it, and people are smart when they interview you. So just be careful. Just be careful what you're writing because somebody can question you and you lose your credibility. So that would be my advice to some of the people starting their career. Be confident, be passionate, and have an attitude that you want to be a continuous learner.
Awesome, awesome one, Divya. That was really straightforward and also really true to what is happening today in the industry. Shashank, do you have anything to add in from pointers or any point of view in here as well?
No, I think it's a healthy conversation. I think we've sort of covered these same points as we discussed before: continuous learning, taking risks, not sticking to a tool or a technology, getting married, right? Just look at higher level competencies, cloud data engineering, analytics, data management. I think all are extremely important from a career standpoint.
And one
Absolutely.
thing
And I
over
think
here,
Paresh has.
Kavita, just want to add, one thing I have
Yeah.
learned in my, at least especially the role that I have played in, and I didn't come from the L&D or reskilling background before I joined NASCOM. And one thing I learned when I was hiring people was don't just focus on what they have done in the past. Look for if the person has the capability to learn. So I think it's very important that if somebody has the capability, you will be able to learn, but be open to learning.
Yep,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
I think Paresh has been talking about this all throughout as well. I believe Paresh. Anything that you want to add in to what Shashank and Divya have already mentioned?
Right. No, I think those are the hygiene requirements, or I would say prerequisites, or the guidelines that every professional who is aspiring to build their career in DNA or maybe any other allied areas as well should go by. So, knowing what you are interested in, what you want to do, and what resources are available at your disposal, I think that will help you sustain in your career and grow.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much. That brings us to the end of the Q&A section. And, guys, if we weren't able to answer your questions, we'll make sure to follow up after, or feel free to reach out to our experts always on LinkedIn. All right, so that concludes our webinar today. The future of data and analytics career. And thank you so much, Paresh, Divya, and Shashank for being with us here today and taking us through the excellent, amazing experiences that you have shared here today with all of us. I think every one of us is going to benefit that. And thank you, everybody who has joined us today. We have come this far to learn and understand about DNA. I'm sure a lot of us are going to build careers in DNA line as well. And don't forget to check out our opportunities, as I kept saying. We have open opportunities at InfoSeps, so please go have a look. And thank you so much. It was great speaking to you all. Have a wonderful day ahead.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Yes.
Bye.
Thank you.
Kavita,
My
you've been
pleasure.
a wonderful host. Thank you.
Thank you, Shashank.
Yeah.
Thank you.